One. Welcome to Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio coverage of Fundraising Day 2012, hosted by the Association of Fundraising Professionals, the Greater New York City chapter. We're at the Marriott Marquis Hotel in Times Square, New York City. With me now is Susanne Felder. Susanne is a consultant in outplacement with the firm Lee Hecht Harrison. Susanne, welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
I'm glad to have you. Thank you. Thanks for taking time on a busy day. Your seminar topic is, I had a great interview, but I didn't get the job. We're talking about successful interviewing techniques, and I'm doing a lot of interviews today at the conference, but this is the only one to help job seekers. Mm-hmm. So generally, we'll have time for details, but generally, what do you see people's shortcomings in around interviewing?
The biggest problem is that people really don't understand the job that they're interviewing for. The best practices is to really figure out what is the company looking for in you, and to show the best sides of what your talents are to meet the company's needs. And people just don't take the time to really figure that out.
So it sounds like research. Research is the place to start. So let's just set the scene. We've seen a job advertised, or we've heard about a job from a colleague. What's the research we should do around the job and the company?
Well, we certainly want to find out everything about that company, see what they do, what their mission, whether it's in the for-profit or not-for-profit sector.
Oh, that's true. When I say company, I mean charity.
Charity, yes. Right. So find out, do some research about them, and then go to LinkedIn and find maybe some people in your network that might be affiliated with that nonprofit, or in the past have been with that nonprofit, and do some real good on-the-ground research. Ask people about the culture, find out what their commitments are, and if it really suits your own style. And if that's true, then keep pursuing it, and reach out to that nonprofit and see if there might be some interest on their part.
Okay, now if it happens to be a bigger organization, you're going to be working in one business unit of the charity. Mm-hmm. How can you find out about what that team or that department's culture is like?
You really are asking your friends what they know about that, even if they haven't worked there. You know, people have a long reach, and they tend to know people who knew people who at one point worked there. Okay. So it's really about networking effectively. I can't say enough about the importance of networking in this market. We have found that about 75 to 80% of people are getting their jobs through direct networking.
Oh, meaning they're finding out about the jobs, this hidden job market that we hear about?
Definitely, there's a hidden job market.
Let's talk about that. So, and what that is, and why networking helps you break through it.
Well, sometimes nonprofits, agencies, even businesses are not in the position to really announce that they're looking for whatever their reason is, but they are sort of on the lookout privately. Mm-hmm. So it's worthwhile to be having conversations with people and suggesting that you are interested in various, really name the targeted companies that you're interested in pursuing, and then have conversations with people that are in a position to hire. Because sometimes hiring managers are not ready to hire, but once they know something about your background, you're on their radar. Okay. And that's the way to really advance yourself for the future when the job actually becomes a reality.
Now, I think it's a bad practice. You tell me if I'm right. Mm-hmm. You're welcome to say that I'm wrong. Uh-huh. Really, you just start your networking when you start your job search.
Oh, well, networking actually, I have to disagree with you, because networking should be something that's going on ongoing.
Oh, yeah. No, actually, I guess I didn't say it right. I'm trying to encourage people to have an active network at all times.
At all times,
and
correctly.
You don't just start when you're in a job search.
Completely agree. Okay. That's right. Okay. And that's what we find is that people often are saying to us that have had long runs with really good nonprofits and for-profit companies that they really lost track of the importance of their network. They were doing well with the company. They were there for 10 years. They were going up the ranks, and they just people left the firm and they didn't keep track where they went, and now all of a sudden they're looking to find them. and it feels a little awkward to them, like, they had forgotten them, and now that they're in the different side of the table,
Yes.
it's a big awakening, and they are saying now they will never do that again. They will be available for people and keep their network engaged.
Well, and that's right, and that's the other side of networking. I mean, you have to be available to help others when you're not in need of help yourself.
Absolutely. It's about being a giver. We talk about donors. It's giving of yourself, and that's an ongoing thing. And the people who, it's funny, what I have found personally is that people who have often been helping others always through their career, they feel most reticent about asking. They feel like they should be the ones just helping. And I say to them, you've been so kind. It's time for you to receive. It's payback time for you, and please do not ever feel remiss about that.
Right.
Yeah, so.
And especially if you've been giving, but interesting, they're so accustomed to giving that they're reluctant to approach their own network for help.
Receiving is a lot harder for them, and I understand that, but they've been kind. It's time to get something back, and it's perfectly acceptable. And what we are finding is that people are more than willing to be helpful. People that never were expected to be helpful are becoming the most helpful. So the second tier, the third tier of third degree of separation, if you will, tend to be the most helpful.
Because don't we all want to just help people? I mean, don't most people want to help others?
One would think, but now in this process you find out who really is genuine and who is less. And then those that are very close to us, they just might not be able to help in a substantial way, so they feel like they should hang back and not be too close to you because they feel badly. They can't help. But this is the time where we really need people to be there for us, even if it's just emotionally, to be understanding that you're going to get through it, but it's a challenge. And
we're talking a lot about networking with friends or friends of friends. What about going to networking events where it's a room full of strangers?
That's always a good process to get good at. It's like a social experience because people really have a hard time talking to strangers. So we heavily encourage people to go to conferences, professional conferences, places where they're going to be around people like themselves who are from their field, and just get more and more comfortable with talking, if you will, talking to strangers. Yeah,
and I imagine that helps in the interview process.
Completely. Okay. What we do at Lee Hecht Harrison is we give them the opportunity to comfortably talk about themselves, which is not very natural for people. Tell me about yourself and what do you do and what are you good at is not what comes off of most people's tongue naturally. So we give them opportunities to always be introducing themselves and give them lots of networking groups to join. And people just come out of their shells. It's remarkable how after a couple of months of being around others, they are perfectly comfortable to do that, yes.
So our subject is interviewing, but this is all feeding the interview. This all came from this networking, our networking discussion all came from doing the right research around the job and the culture of the organization as much as you can find out about the organization.
Right.
In your seminar description, there are 3 R's, and research was the first, but resources. What's your advice around resources?
Resources, finding out what you bring to the table. What resources that the candidate brings is, I believe that's the idea that we're getting at. How can you help that organization? And pinpointing what your real strengths are and how that can help advance that organization. That's really what you want to impart to them.
And you'll find out about the organization's needs as you're doing your due diligence, your research. You might find out some of the shortcomings that the organization has and see how you can plug those gaps?
Absolutely. You want to know what value you can add. So you might bring a special connection or a special perspective to that nonprofit. Say it's a science institution and you happen to have a background in science. That's a value added that is extremely important, and you're not the average, say, fundraiser. If that's your field, you're a fundraiser that happens to really know a lot about science, right. And therefore you could speak more passionately about it. So that would be a really important aspect that you want to bring out to the nonprofit.
Do you have specific advice around when you're subject to a panel interview? I mean, the panel could be 2 people, but it could be as many as 5 or 6.
Yes.
How do we? That's incredibly intimidating. You're walking into a room of, let's say it's the worst case, 6 strangers, and they're all sitting on the other side of the table. How do you prep yourself for that?
That's a real challenge, and it's one that we do address because it's called like the stress interview, and it's to see how you stand up in extremely unusual circumstance, which you normally would not be the target of a conversation like that in real life. Mm-hmm. So we tell people, introduce yourself to each person individually, make sure that you have eye contact with each person, and shake their hand, make yourself known, and remember their name.
So shake their hand, just go down the line of the table?
Yes, absolutely. When you come in, yes, when you come in, introduce yourself individually to each of them, make an impression on them that you're confident and you know you want to engage with them. And then if the questions are coming a little bit too fast and too furious, mm-hmm. there are ways to slow it down, a bit of humor. And that always helps break the ice a bit, because sometimes people just lose sight of the fact that you're only a person and you're a bit under the gun. So I've had a client or two have said things like, "Oh, I made it like it was Jeopardy," and I'd say, "Oh, I'll take Jim for 200, and then I'm going to take the next person,
Arlene
for 500." But
okay.
So it kind of, everyone has to laugh at that, because you realize that how many can you do at once? Obviously, it's just one, and they are trying to see what it's like for you to trial under fire. So we try to get people to realize that humor is a good thing, and it helps people relax as well. Helps you relax. You can always take a drink of water, give yourself a moment to think, and companies are looking to see what you're about. You also have to realize if that is their culture, to be that way, to be very in your face, you have to know, is that for you?
Is that right?
Is that for you? Yes. Yeah. It may not be for you.
How about preparing for the serial interview? You're going to have 3 interviews in the day. Each one's going to be at least 45 minutes, I would think, mm-hmm. right? How do you prepare for that multiple interview where you could be on for close to 3 hours in a row, but with 3 different people?
Right. You want to be prepared to give good examples of a variety of things that you're about, like different facets of a diamond, and you don't want to be repeating the same story to each of them. If you tell the same
story 3 times, and then they get
they're
together,
all going to say, they can say, "Oh yeah, she told me that, he told me that story, I heard that already." So you have to come prepared for your interview with a good, what we call them, accomplishment stories, if you will, so that you have maybe 6 or 8 really important projects that you've worked on that will really show you off to best advantage. You can come in with a portfolio and have some points, key words for yourself to remember that you want to make sure that this project gets put on the table, and then you mix it up so that everybody is hearing some different stories out of you, and each can bring out different facets of what makes you successful. Growth money that you've brought in for a nonprofit. Have you created a new event? Have you done outreach? Brought in new community members? Brought in board members? These are things that are important usually to fundraising operations.
Okay. What if I feel that I've gotten a question that's inappropriate or illegal around age or pregnancy or sexual orientation? How do I handle that in that moment?
Yes, in that moment, you might want to say, "Can you rephrase that question?" Or give
them a chance to
realize that might be a really uncomfortable thing to be talking about, and that you sort of object to getting that question. You might say, "Is that relevant to the job?" Or I've heard people say they're asked whether or not they have young children. Obviously, the employer is trying to get at, are you going to be away if the child is sick? So sometimes people will say, "Oh, is this a very family-oriented company? Do you do family events? Is that why you're asking?" Yeah. So you try to soften it. You try not to be in their face about the fact that that's really overstepping their bounds. But to some extent, you have to pick your battles because you are looking for the job. So,
although this does also inform the culture of the organization, and it might not be the right fit.
Completely. Do take note that if they're overstepping, that this might be a real invasive place, and that they're expecting a whole lot from you that is really not normal, and that might not be, like you say, a good fit.
Yep.
Yeah,
okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
The third of the 3 R's that you have is references. it's important who you select for your references. What's your advice around that?
References can go back 20 years. Could go back from the beginning of your career.
Well, I don't think people think of that. I think they think of the last job.
Right, and that is certainly not the whole scope of what is appropriate to use. References can be people that were above you, it could be people that reported to you, it could be your peer level, it can be your boss's boss. Anyone that knew the quality of your work can speak for you. Those are appropriate references. They could also be, if it's for a community organization, it might be something that you do on your private time that you'd like to have that person report in about their experience with you, perhaps in your community service. So you want to get a variety of references that will reflect all sides of what your background is.
Okay. People, when they're asked to provide a reference, often ask, what do you want me to say, or what should I talk about? It's okay to give that advice around what you'd like them to be specific about?
Yes, it is, because oftentimes if you've worked with someone 5 years ago, they might forget exactly which projects you worked on together. So people kind of need prompting. So you want to remind them, remember we did this such and such together and we had this result. So by you sort of writing out some pointers about what your relationship together was like, it's really informative. It helps them. It takes them off the hook of the pressure of, I forgot, what am I going to say? And it's also you feeding them what you felt was the most important aspect of the project, so that they're going to write quite cogently and importantly about what you did.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it might just be a conversation, too. A lot of references are just checked by phone, no?
Yes, that's right. Now, another thing about references, when you have a company, the company you might have just come from, in the corporate world this is very true, the company often will only just verify that you worked there and how long that you worked there. So that can be a bit of a problem if, your best references are the people that are still there. The way to overcome that would be to look at people that have moved on to another organization, and then they're not under that corporate policy, HR restriction of not being able to give a reference. Yes.
But you don't see that so much in charities? That unwillingness to say more than just to confirm dates of employment?
It's not as strict. It doesn't seem to be as strict. People are a little more willing to talk. The other thing that people are very surprised about is that companies, you can ask what the person's salary was, and it can be verified. The new employer can ask for your W-2, which seems really invasive to find out what did you actually make on paper.
The new employer can ask for W-2?
They can ask for your W-2. So it's when you talked about salary, which is a whole other chapter, how do you dodge the salary question, which we do recommend that you try to keep that salary question off to the side as best you can.
Okay.
But at a certain point, they're going to want to know, are you within the ballpark of the range that they're interested in? You can always say, this is what my package was, this is where I left off at, and then just back away from it and say, I'm very interested in this organization, and it's more important to me to talk to you about the opportunity, and we could always, I'm sure, if we're on the same page, we'll come to a mutually agreeable point with salary.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask how to dodge the salary question, but you just did.
Did it? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's that important. I think everyone is very nervous that they're going to be put on the spot. Now, when you're working with a recruiter, it seems to be an easier conversation to have because the recruiter is representing you, and the recruiter wants to know, are you in the ballpark for what they will go for? If you're completely at a different salary rate, much higher, it might be a fruitless kind of conversation. So you do want to be forthright with the recruiter. You try to keep that conversation in the background if you're going directly in.
Okay.
No problem.
How about the last half hour before the interview? So my interview is scheduled for 2:30. It's now 2 o'clock. Let's say I'm already on site. I've arrived. So I guess your advice is to get there early, I presume.
Yeah. Yes.
So, to make sure you're not late.
Yes.
Okay. Now what do I do in this last half hour?
Last half hour. Okay, so you're coming in. You certainly want to have at least 15 minutes to be able to fill out any forms if they have them. So that there's going to be at least 15 minutes that's going to be for that.
Oh, so show up early?
We show up early before.
Okay.
Certainly show up early. And that gives you a time to really look around and assess what you're seeing. Look at the interaction of the people in the organization with the receptionist and see the culture. You can really learn a lot by just watching and observing.
Just 15 or 20 minutes, right?
Absolutely.
Watching people come and go?
Watch people come and go. And if the receptionist receptionist is not busy, have a chat with the receptionist. You learn a lot about the organization. Find out what their experience has been. Have they been there a long time? There's a lot of benefit that you could actually gather, and then it helps inform you of how to handle yourself in the interview. You might learn of events that are coming up or special projects that are on the table that you might not have known. So it's always a good idea to be highly respectful and interactive, if you can, with the front desk, because that front desk person is going to be giving the first frontline response to the hiring person as to what was your impression.
Oh, the receptionist might actually be asked.
Absolutely. And if you come in all huffy and annoyed and you didn't get through security fast enough and whatever happened, and you come in all in a rage, they're taking note, because you're on. You're on from the minute you walk in that door.
Okay.
So collect your thoughts, get yourself together, and remember, the clock starts when you walk in that door at reception.
Right. Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. We have just maybe a minute or so, minute and a half left. What about the resume? You have advice around resumes?
Resumes are something that can be targeted for particular jobs. Don't think of your resume as a static item that just is the same for every place that you're applying for, because each job has slightly different requirements, and just like you have many facets, you want to feature the ones that are most important to that nonprofit. So you do want to tailor your resume to be very appealing to their needs. We certainly suggest a summary statement. It used to be years ago you did an objective.
Oh, okay.
And now it's really about you quickly summarize your strengths, what your capabilities are, and then you go into your accomplishment statements.
Okay. We have a couple seconds left. Anything else you want to say about resumes? Well, I'll ask you specifically. Length. If I've been in the nonprofit world for 15, 17 years, is it okay to have a 2-3 page resume?
2-page is the limit.
2-page.
People get a little weary of reading, and you don't have, if you're going 20, 25 years, you don't have to give all your experience. You can just give like the last 15 years is certainly enough, and you could always speak to further back if they are interested.
Okay. We're going to wrap it up there. All right.
Perfect.
Susanne Felder is a consultant in outplacement with the firm Lee Hecht Harrison, and you're listening to Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio coverage of Fundraising Day 2012 at the Marriott Marquis in Times Square, New York City. Susanne, thank you very much for being a guest.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Been a pleasure.
Thank you.